Hey guys, welcome to part two. We are talking about, in part one, we actually talked about good design. We were promoting Seth's restructured design website. And to kind of continue off of our first video, since we were talking about good design, things that you should do, things that you should always like work with when it comes to typography and everything. We want to take this video and kind of talk about what are some things you should never do when you're designing. What represents bad design? What are some things that you should never do while on the job? What are some things that you should never do with a client? So this video is all about things you should never do as a designer. Part one was all about the things you should do as a designer. This one's all about things you should never do as a designer. So to start things off, guys, never use bad typography. Never use unoriginal ideas. If there's a million Raven websites out there, don't use a Raven. Use another bird if you have to. If you got to use a bird for a business. Never overuse 3D or never use useless effects. I know there's a lot of people out there that love 3D. They don't like flat imagery, so they got to have everything 3D. I'm not huge on it. I understand why people like it. I understand why people would want it and everything. I think you can use it occasionally. I have seen some designs that overuse that look and just overuse, pointless effects. So try to avoid those kind of things. I also don't like it when a design is there just to be there. Seth and I were talking once. If your business looks like a piece of paper like this, and it says paper below it, and it's done in Helvetica or whatever, more than likely people aren't going to want to come to your business because that's just boring and people don't want to go there. And like we were just talking about, never make a boring design. If you're bored with it, more than likely your client's going to be bored with it. So make sure you do something fun and original and something that both you and the client can be happy about. And don't be different for the sake of different. I was once talking about David Lynch, and I said David Lynch likes to make a lot of films where he gives you enough hints, he gives you enough information, and by the time you're done viewing the film, you as the viewer have to say what you just watched, what you interpreted, and that is your film experience for that movie. And unlike other movies where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the ending is like, okay, this is how it ends, and hope you liked it or didn't like it. So I guess when you're making something different, make sure there's a reason for it, and make sure it still applies with good design. Also, if your design has a bad reason for existing, more than likely, either something went wrong while you were designing it, and make sure that your design is there for a good reason. Don't just make it for the sake of making it. And also make sure your design is readable. If you have unreadable typefaces, if you use wrong typefaces, it can be really frustrating to look at your design. And if your design can't be interpreted, then there's no point of it existing because you're promoting something. And if you can't promote it, then you just ruin the idea of promotion. So I'm going to give it over to Seth here since he actually is the restructured design man with me today. And so Seth, what are some things that you should never do when you design?
On top of your, very good points, I'd like to kind of touch up on and add more additions to the finer points of bad design. And to me, there was kind of two things. Number one, bad hierarchy, and actually, I think to a certain extent, based on what your design is, hierarchy is very essential in for good layout in every aspect. But bad hierarchy, say like you have like a brochure for like a bank, they use like serif fonts, and then inside the brochure you have images at the top, and then underneath you have topography explaining more about what the business offers, what the business is more. It kind of goes more into detail about what the business is more about. But anyways, I think in that circumstance, once you have images at the top, info at the bottom, that's just a very simple example, but that I guess that for me that would be considered good hierarchy. But say if you had a the same concept, a bank, but you have maybe like the info. I guess you could say like you have the like an image or a brochure where the eye is first led, where you first start the eye like in the lower left hand corner of the page, and then kind of works your way up to, say, from the the upper right hand corner of the page to the upper left hand corner of the page, then and then kind of does a kind of this X crisscross. To me, maybe that could be bad design, but it also really is based on the tone, which material you're using it for. Say if it's like a punk rock poster, hey, that might actually work because maybe that's what you intended for the audience to see. So it just really depends on the mood, the tone, depends on like which kind of piece you're designing, whether it's like a vector logo in Illustrator to a page layout, like say like a magazine spread in InDesign to photo manipulation in Photoshop. Based off those programs and elements, um, hierarchy can be used. It can be very good and very effective, but hierarchy can also be very bad at the same time. The other thing too, I'm just trying to think. I guess I can kind of clarify on Tom's point is, to me, type is actually it's almost an necessity. It's kind of like think of Batman and Robin. Batman's the image, Robin's the type, and to me, an image can always stand on its own, but sometimes maybe 8 out of 10 times, maybe 7 out of 10 times, type is also needed with that image. But it also depends on what piece you're doing as well. So, but for me, I really like all sorts of typography, but the typography has to be used in in accordance to what you're communicating to your audience. Um, and I think for me, bad typography is used poorly. Once say like you have say like a grunge, band or something like that, and then you use like a typography that has no recognition, has no sense of like grunge style or something like that belongs with that image, then to me that's bad typography. So I guess for me it has to be just uniformity between an image and a typeface. And I've seen a lot of bad typefaces out there, especially a lot of the I call them the wannabe typefaces, like Arial tries to be Helvetica, but on top of that, Arial does look like Helvetica. Um, and also, I know some typefaces out there are very expensive, and especially in in the professional world of graphic design, I would say probably some of the best type is type that you actually buy, and type can actually get up to $300 to $1,000, maybe to $1,200 just for typeface alone. But what you pay for is what you get, and it's superb. I guess, like I said, for me, bad type could consist of, like I said, Arial. There's these are actually some of the more generic typefaces that you can easily find off like Microsoft Word, like from Arial to Tahoma to even Papyrus. But like I said, even though those typefaces to me can be very overused because they're in a program that is used by a lot of people on their computers, unlike the Adobe InDesign Creatives or I should say Adobe Creative Suite. But they are bad typefaces in my opinion, but that doesn't mean that they can't be used. I guess one good example is Papyrus being used in the film Avatar, and I thought actually it was used pretty well. But of course, Papyrus has like the ridges on the outside of each letter. It just kind of felt really nature, had a natural feeling. But it's like using Papyrus, in a film that it just does not belong. So that kind of goes back to my point in saying, hey, the type, if the type fits the mood and the feeling of that kind of goes along with the imagery or poster to whatever it's coexisting with, then yes, it's good. But if it doesn't have that uniformity, then it's bad. So.
And I guess when it comes to movies, guys, I guess a good example of good design when it comes to movies is the Christopher Nolan company Syncopy. He made a film called Inception a couple of years ago, and it dealt with a lot of mazes and everything else. So I can see why his design for his company was very maze-like. The typography was maze-like. It was within a maze, and even if you look closely at the design, it actually is a maze that you have to figure out and everything. And to me, that was just a very clever design. I mean, it represents kind of how Christopher Nolan's films work, and they did it in a clever design fashion. I don't know what typeface they used, but I'm sure it was expensive if it was a maze-like type. And like what Seth was saying, I'm one of those people that really did not like the Avatar logo. I felt that for such a big budget film, it's one of the biggest budget films in the world. I really wish they did something bigger with it than just a neon blue papyrus on this big budget poster. Because the poster itself was beautiful, but they needed a more designer friendly way to have Avatar written on there. I was even telling Seth not too long ago, even some of the fan art for Avatar, I saw a logo where they used a very thick typeface similar to Poplar, for those who know what that is. And it was a see-through typeface, and you see the Na'vi through the typeface, so the Na'vi's actually looking back at you in the typeface. And to me, that design alone was even better than the one they actually used for Avatar. And to me, that's just a good example of, whoever did that fan art clearly was a better designer than whoever did the Avatar poster, because I don't know. I mean, if you're going to use a neon blue papyrus, make it a more appealing neon blue papyrus than just putting it on this big budget movie poster. So,
Sure.
Any other comments, Seth? Or
I mean, yeah, we already touched on the finer points of good design to bad design, but for me, design in general should just have good hierarchy. To good layout, to it just depends on what you're designing. But there are various forms of designs, and I think the other thing we really haven't touched up on is kind of like, and I think definitely print is another whole other conversation. I've definitely had a lot of experience with it, and it can be very frustrating at times. When you're trying to say like print a brochure, print like several collateral material for a client, at the last minute, and of course, the ink could be low, or or just like or just the color doesn't print the way you want it to, and I think that's the other challenge of design too is after you've designed it on a computer is trying to going to print, and I've definitely experienced that a lot, but you also have to know. I think definitely how colors transferred to how is transferred to print can be very tricky at a lot of times, because I think more times than not, I think color turns out usually darker when it's converted to print. But I think for me it's really knowing good color choices. Knowing color theory, knowing when to use it, when not to use it, and even like the little details from knowing, RGB for web, CMYK for print, knowing dots per inch compared to pixels per inch, which is for the web, dots per inch is for print. Just little stuff like that. So, it all adds up and just kind of, definitely makes you a little more knowledgeable design. It actually kind of makes you a little bit more comfortable when going into your next project as a graphic designer.
All right, guys. So Seth has a website called restructuredesign.com. I'll make sure to have a link below of how to get to that website.
And it's restructure spelled with a K instead of a C.
And Seth works on several different kind of designs. I'm sure if you email him, contact him through that website or through email, he'll definitely make a design for you.
And just give you a little tidbit about what I offer at Restructure Design. I go from logo and branding to various forms of other page layouts to invitations from wedding to party to special events. And I also do specialize in interactive PDFs. So there's a lot of various forms. I haven't actually explained all of what I do, but Tom will post a link for my website below this video, and hope you can check it out.
All right, guys. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to design, this is the man to go to, and we hope to see you next time.